Welcome. This video is documenting the prediction that famous singer-songwriter Paul Simon of Simon and Garfunkel will slip and fall and severely injure his head on December 19th, 2025. The post date on the social media platform that you are watching this video on proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this time-stamped email and forensic notes PDF document. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. Welcome. This video is predicting that famous singer-songwriter Paul Simon of Simon and Garfunkel will slip and fall and severely injure his head on December 19th, 2025. Sometime after which it is predicted that he will die from his head injury, but it is not known when that will be at this time. This email is documenting the prediction that singer-songwriter Paul Simon of Simon and Garfunkel will slip and fall and severely injure his head on December 19th, 2025. At some point later, Simon will die from his head injury. The date that this email is composed, as we can see here, is December 5th. This is at least 2 weeks before the prediction for December 19th. Okay, we can see December 5th right here. Like I said, if you are skeptical, email me and I'll forward this to you. Okay, and yeah, I do not have any ability to alter dates in Google Gmail. Okay. But there are other ways that I'm documenting this prediction as well. And so, the prediction that Paul Simon is very important and that his death will be extremely important in God's signs, big picture of signs, which is his true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel. This has been known, the significance of Paul Simon has been known for many years. It was this year that it was realized that, in fact, he would slip and fall and injure his head. And there are many reasons for knowing that, which are explained in other videos, and I'll likely get into much of it in this video also. But of course, he has a big hit, slip sliding away. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to, in each paragraph, describe superficially, surface level detail of reasons, profound reasons, for how this prediction is known ahead of time. As you will see, these reasons could not be concocted in any human being's imagination. You will see that they are clearly from God. In other words, not only does the documentation of the date that this email is composed prove this prediction is being made ahead of time, but the rational person will also recognize that these reasons that I'll be describing could not have been created in someone's imagination. For example, King Apollyon from the bottomless pit is mentioned in Revelation 9:11. Paul Simon sang about the Apollo mission to the moon at Carter's inauguration on the date 119, which hints at Revelation 9:11. King Apollyon is Satan, whose representative is the Antichrist, the 44th president. In Bible prophecy, the Antichrist suffers a mortal head wound. The king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley, died from a head wound in the bathroom of his mansion in the 4x4th state. Many people don't know this, but professionals believe that Elvis Presley, in fact, died from the head injury he suffered 10 years prior in his mansion in Los Angeles, where he fell, as in Fallen Angels, Los Angeles, the angels in Spanish, which caused over time, progressive increase of autoimmune diseases, which he used drugs to counteract. In other words, he didn't really die of his drug intake habits, but the autoimmune diseases that he was suffering as a result of his fall when he knocked his head on his porcelain bathtub in his mansion. He ultimately then died in his mansion, the other mansion, in the 4x4th state. Now, Elvis was the king of rock and roll, which hints at the King Apollyon from the bottomless pit in Revelation 9:11. The Antichrist, the representative of King Apollyon, is the 44th president, and that's why the king died in his mansion in the 4x4th state. The 44th president will reside in the mansion at 4x400 Pennsylvania Avenue that has 44 plus 44 plus 44 rooms. With the addition of Trump's ballroom, that's the 44th prime number of rooms, or semi-prime number of rooms. The king, Elvis, famously covered Paul Simon's Bridge Over Troubled Water, and Simon's fourth prime number album, his seventh album, is titled after the king's mansion in the 4x4th state. Graceland is about Elvis's mansion, and Elvis covered Paul Simon's Bridge Over Troubled Water. Simon is predicted to fall and injure his head on December 19th, 2025, 1 month and 19 days, which hints at Revelation 9:11 and King Apollyon, after Trump gave an interview from his mansion for the first time to CBS since the $4x4 million lawsuit. Let me just back up. Paul Simon's Bridge Over Troubled Water was covered by the king, and that's because King Apollyon and his minions cross the bridge from the bottomless pit into the earthly realm, as symbolized by Revelation 9:11. So that's the significance of Bridge Over Troubled Water here. Now, what I'm saying is that we have this mansion theme in prophetic signs related to Paul Simon, including the king's mansion, which, by the way, is in Memphis, Tennessee, which is named after Memphis, Egypt, in the area of the country nicknamed Little Egypt, Memphis, Tennessee. And the king's mansion, Elvis's mansion, is symbolic of the king's palace in Egypt. In the Bible, the king in his palace is symbolic of the Antichrist, who is the 44th president. Hence why the king's mansion is in the 4x4th state. But Simon's fourth prime number album is titled after the king's mansion. Now, speaking of mansions, 1 month and 19 days, as in Revelation 9:11, King Apollyon, after Trump, so the date that Simon is predicted to fall and injure his head is a prophetic 1 month and 19 days, which hints at Revelation 9:11 and King Apollyon. After Trump gave an interview from his mansion for the first time to CBS since his $4x4 million lawsuit. But this was also the same day that Trump trumpeted that he had renovated the bathroom in the White House mansion that is named after the 4x4th president, President Lincoln. These two mansion Trump signs, Trump's two mansions, were both on the same day. 1 month and 19 days before Paul Simon's predicted fall, and Simon is associated with mansion theme, and also King Elvis, who died from a head injury in his mansion. After he died from his head injury in his mansion, after he hit his head in his other mansion. Speaking of two mansions, Trump has two mansions, as did Elvis. I just realized that. Now, this day that I'm talking about, when Trump trumpeted from the two mansions, or about the two mansions, was October 31st, Halloween. And there's a reason why it was on Halloween. It's because of this theme we were talking about, Revelation 9:11, and the possession of people by demons from the bottomless pit. So this Halloween day was in turn 9 months and 11 days, which also hints at Revelation 9:11 and King Apollyon, after Trump's inauguration, that involved A Sound of Silence. Simon's first big hit that launched his career was Sound of Silence. The Sound of Silence I'm referring to was during the performance at the inauguration of the winner of the 4th American Idol, Carrie Underwood. American Idol hints at the Antichrist, who will be in the White House mansion. And this was the day Trump returned to the White House mansion. And Carrie Underwood famously or infamously fell and hit her head, requiring stitches on her face, at her home, her mansion, if you will, in the 4 times 4th state. And again, she won the 4th American Idol. And again, this was on the day of the Trump return to the White House, which has 44 plus 44 plus 44 rooms and is located at 4 times 400 Pennsylvania Avenue. Trump's inauguration and his return to the White House mansion on January 20th, 2025. Oh, and her Sound of Silence was when the power cut out, when she was singing America the Beautiful, and then resorted to singing it a cappella. That was a Sound of Silence. There was an awkward period of silence before she cut the silence by saying, "You know the lyrics, help me out here," and then began to sing it a cappella. But there was an awkward period of silence. The music began for like a second or two and then cut out. And then no one knew what to do for a while there. It was a sound of silence. That's because of the sound of silence that's described in heaven at the beginning of Revelation chapter 8 before the 7 trumpet judgments, which is why Paul Simon's most recent album is 7 Psalms, in which he was instructed to make in a prophetic dream with a voice and name it 7 Psalms. And Paul Simon is known for his big hit Late in the Evening, which is a name in itself emphasizing judgment, and the time is running out for repentance, Late in the Evening. And anyway, that song is famously known for its use of trumpets. And we're talking about trump here, God's trumpet, that he uses to trumpet and highlight his prophetic signs. So anyway, the sound of silence at the inauguration was 9 months and 11 days before the Trump mansion signs, which in turn was 1 month and 19 days. Both of these connections hint at Revelation 9:11 and King Apollyon, who in the prophecy rises out of his mansion, if you will, his dwelling in the bottomless pit, and crosses over into the earthly realm over the bridge over troubled water, Paul Simon, that King Elvis covered, as in King Apollyon. All right, now, back to what I was saying here. She also hit her head, infamously, requiring a lot of stitches, busted up her head when she fell onto her steps leading up to her house, her mansion in the 4 times 4th state. Now, Trump's inauguration and his return to the White House mansion on January 20th, 2025 was in turn another 9 months and 11 days after Paul Simon sang at a state dinner in the White House mansion. And he sang about traveling to the King's Mansion, Graceland, in the 4 times 4th state. That's amazing. Okay? So, from the day that Paul Simon sang in the White House mansion at an official state dinner, it is 9 months and 11 days to Carrie Underwood singing on the day that Trump returned to the mansion, the White House mansion. And then it's another 9 months and 11 days to the signs involving the mansions of Trump's on Halloween, which is then 1 month and 19 days, which also hints at Revelation 9:11, to the date it is predicted that Paul Simon will slip and injure his head, just like Carrie Underwood did. Now, another thing is that and I don't think I mention it here in the rest of the paragraph, so I'll just add it. Paul Simon was singing at the state dinner for the Prime Minister from Japan. And in God's signs, God is using Japan for symbolism for three things, one of them being Japan animation, which is obsessed with which is obsessed with spiritual possession, which hints at demonic possession, which is what is described in this prophecy in Revelation chapter 9, when King Apollyon and the demons rise from the bottomless pit and cross over the bridge into the earthly realm. And that's why Paul Simon's head injury, as I'll explain right here. So, the lyrics of Simon's song Graceland, and by the way, the reason why he sang Graceland is because it was learned that one of the Prime Minister, well, no, maybe it was just learned that one of the favorite artists of the Prime Minister is Paul Simon, not necessarily the song Graceland. I don't know. But anyway, there's a connection even between Paul Simon and the Prime Minister, because it was said in the news story at the time that the reason why Biden chose Paul Simon is because of learning that Paul Simon is one of the Prime Minister of Japan's famous favorite artists. Okay, so in Bible prophecy, King Apollyon is released from his metaphorical mansion, the bottomless pit, when it is opened with a key. Sorry. The lyrics of Simon's song Graceland begin with and he sang Graceland. That's the song he sang to the Prime Minister. Begin with the Mississippi Delta. The Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar, is the first line of the song, which symbolizes everything. God uses firsts for signs. And at one point in history, before titles were invented, a couple of centuries ago, works of literature or music compositions were known by the first line of the composition. So it was called an incipit. So the Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar is the incipit for the song. There's huge significance to this. Mississippi is the 9 plus 11th state to join the Union. More Revelation 9:11 symbolism, King Apollyon. Furthermore, the king's mansion, the Graceland mansion, which Paul Simon is singing about here when he talks about the Mississippi Delta, belonged to the king of rock and roll. Now, in Bible prophecy, King Apollyon is released from his metaphorical mansion, the bottomless pit, when it is opened with a key. The word key is equal to 41 in simple English gematria. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. Simon was born in the year 41, and he composes using musical keys. And he's known as the GOAT, greatest of all time, of pop American music composition. Simon sang about the king's mansion, in the White House mansion, on the date 410, which also hints at the number 41. Okay, and again, it's the key that opens the bottomless pit to the King Apollyon and the demons. That's why the 9 months and 11 days connection, and the Mississippi Delta, because it's the 9 plus 11th state. Okay, now the winner of the 4th American Idol, Carrie Underwood, fell and hit her head at her home in the 4 times 4th state, exactly 410 weeks, which also hints at 41, before the death of the composer of one of her hit songs, Jesus Take the Wheel, on September 18th, 2025. And this date is 90 plus 1 plus 1, as in Revelation 9:11, days before the predicted fall and head injury of the GOAT of American pop music composition, who was born in 41. Now, there's more to this, because the Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar. Paul Simon famously dated Shelley Duvall, whom he met on the movie set of Annie Hall. Shelley Duvall starred in the movie The Shining, which is about the demonic possession of a ballroom hall and the hotel, focused on the ballroom hall. And Paul Simon also famously broke up with Duvall at the airport, as in Portal for the Demons, before she flew to the UK to film the movie The Shining. The Shining is about demonic possession. Paul Simon sang about the Mississippi Delta shining like a national guitar. The Mississippi hints at Revelation 9:11 and the demons. The Shining hints at demonic possession. And Delta is because the demonic possession will be facilitated by delta brainwaves in the brains inside the heads of people, which is why Paul Simon is predicted to fall and injure his head, which is also why Carrie Underwood, the winner of the 4th American Idol, as in the 44th President Antichrist, infamously fell and injured her head in the 4x4th state at her dwelling, at her home, at her mansion. The Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar as Paul Simon was traveling to the king's mansion. That's the story of the song in the lyrics. The delta brainwaves will be triggered by frequencies. Music is frequencies. On the gate to the White House, to the Graceland mansion, are big musical notes on the gate, the entrance. Elvis Presley and Paul Simon are the famous singers of American music. Music is frequencies. Furthermore, Carrie Underwood was a musician who sings. And she had her frequencies interrupted during the inauguration, The Sound of Silence. Paul Simon. So you see how all of this is truly stunning. The Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar was sung at the White House mansion 9 months and 11 days before Carrie Underwood and The Sound of Silence on the day that Trump returned to the White House mansion, which was in turn 9 months and 11 days before the Trump mansion signs on Halloween, which is in turn 1 month and 19 days to the predicted day that Paul Simon will slip and fall and injure his head, because this will be symbolism for the brain injuries that people will suffer after having taken the mark of the Antichrist, that contains components that make their way to people's brains, which then will act as transistors for the frequencies to facilitate to engender delta brainwaves and facilitate demonic possession. The mark of the Antichrist is also pointed to through the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley, because he famously took an injection before he performed at the Ed Sullivan Show, which changed history, because it changed the baby boomer generation's perception of these things, which radically altered the course of history and the industry for the things, which has ultimately captured the US government and is in control of things. Including the public's perception of these things through propaganda and the capture of the regulatory agencies within the government. Okay, so, yeah. So there you have it. And also that's why Elvis went to the Space Needle in Seattle to film the movie. It happened at the World's Fair because the Space Needle opened for the World's Fair. The Space Needle is symbolism for transhumanism technology, which is the thing that alters people's chromosomes and also will trigger delta brainwaves and demonic possession. And the Space Needle is in King County, right? As in King of Rock and Roll, as in King Antichrist. Also, it is the 42nd state. And the number 42 is symbolic of the period of the time of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. All right, so I think I covered this most astounding first paragraph here. As you can see, No one could have concocted all of this in their own imagination. This was progressively revealed through progressive building, adding to God's big picture of science with more and more signs over the years. Okay, and it's all coming together now at the end with full, complete, or hopefully anyway, understanding of what God is communicating here. All this couldn't obviously have been understood that I've just described here in this video, this first paragraph. All of this couldn't obviously be understood in one download. It took progressive signs over a long time, a trail of signs in which all of the signs connected to each other, like I'm describing here, in order for God to fully reveal this big picture and this story that he's telling. And that's the thing. None of God's prophetic signs can be properly or fully understood without their connections and context with the other prophetic signs. And this is what is missed by pretty much, I mean, there are some that kind of get this, but the vast majority of people that are interested in prophetic signs do not appreciate this, or not appreciate it fully, I should say. It's only being explained on this channel. And this is also why the fact that this isn't appreciated is the reason why the vast majority of the prophetic signs in general, in the first place, have been unrecognized by others that are interested in prophetic signs. They don't know even what to look for because they haven't been following the connections between the signs. And it has required full-time work from morning until night for more than 7 years to get all of this as well. So it's not like they're to be blamed in a way also. I mean, I don't know how anyone else would even come to this sort of understanding without having been fully dedicated to it. And anyway, as you can see, this is not a product of one's imagination. This is the product of God's prophetic signs. And again, the date proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time. All right, so you know what to do depending on who you are when the prediction comes to pass. I'll give you a clue if you do not already know Christ. It's time that you do. It's time that you develop a relationship with Christ. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Do not listen to or follow the example of most quote-unquote Christians. Instead, follow the teachings of Jesus, which most quote-unquote Christians ignore. Like Jesus, you must surrender your life. Put nothing ahead of Jesus, your Lord. Like Jesus, you must lay down your life so that you may live. As Jesus said, one must die first, like a kernel of wheat going into the ground, in order to then grow and produce fruit. And like Jesus said, one must produce fruit, or else like a branch or a tree not producing fruit, they will be thrown into the fire. Jesus was speaking to quote-unquote Christians when he said this. One must die the self in order to be born again. And like Jesus said, one must be born again to enter the kingdom. Like Jesus, you must sacrifice your life for the sake of the coming kingdom. It means to do work that involves some form of sacrifice and risk. To have faith does not mean to intellectually agree. You need to demonstrate your faith through taking action. To have faith means to trust in God's promises. Taking action demonstrates trust and fear of the Lord. The primary reason that the wrath of God is coming upon America is quote-unquote Christians that do not get what I have just explained. The only reason a Christian is alive is in order to help other people become Christians and make it to the kingdom. Do not be deceived by those on the political left claiming to be quote-unquote Christians. There is no such thing as a Christian on today's political progressive left. Jesus said, "Do not think I have come to abolish or change any bit of the law or the prophets of the Old Testament Bible." In other words, the God of the Old Testament Bible is the exact same God of the New Testament Bible. It is essential that you learn about the God of the Bible and his ways. The God of the Old Testament Bible is looking to see who will fear him, and to fear God is not the same thing as quote-unquote revering or honoring God. Through Christ's ransom payment, a Christian is someone who has been redeemed and freed from slavery to sin and Satan. In response, a true Christian recognizes that their life in this world does not belong to them, and they become a willing slave to Jesus for the sake of the kingdom. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. And don't only put the link to this video or another video on this channel in comments sections of places you typically visit, but importantly, put the link to the video in places you never visit, where people who don't think like you visit. If you are a quote-unquote Christian, nothing in terms of an evangelism tool compares to this video with its prediction. It is a massive bag of gold. Beware of Jesus' warning through the quote-unquote Christian that did nothing with his bag of gold and was banished to hell. Also, read Ezekiel chapter 3 and 33 for this same warning. If you think you might be spending too much time watching videos instead of working and sacrificing for the kingdom through handing out flyers and potentially helping hundreds of people in the same length of time as a video, my flyer is filled with amazing information that people need to know right now, and it points people to the video channel. Now is not the time to be handing out typical evangelical tracts that are largely based in error anyway, such as, quote, Jesus loves you, unquote, for example. You can hand out the flyer on busy street corners, put them on car windshields in busy parking lots, and put them in mailboxes. Just send the file to your local print shop. You can download the file from the website. please leave a like and upvote the video. And once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, asteroidprediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the Odyssey.com or Rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.